3 v2 stock firmware has a few bugs on it, but Creality quickly released firmware updates to fix those bugs. In there, you can find the stock firmware and also the contents of the memory card that comes with the printer. You can check the video description below for the link. The firmware file is already compiled, so when you download, you get a bin file, and that's the one you will use to upload to the printer. For the first generation Ender 3, and before you could install the firmware for the first time, you had to install the bootloader. With the V2, you don't need to worry about that. Just copy the bin file to the memory card, insert it in the printer, turn the printer on, and wait a few seconds. The board will automatically upload the firmware. The downside of the bin files is that they are already compiled, which means that if you want to edit something in the firmware, like changing the printable area, for example, or add a leveling sensor, you can't do that with this bin file. You need to have the raw or uncompiled firmware to do that. Well, we are in luck. Just a few days ago, Marlin version 2.0.6 was released, and this new version now supports the Creality Ender 3 v2. The example configs are also available in Marlin's website, making it much easier to work with. So, go to Marlin's website and to the download section and download version 2.0.6. Next to it, you can find the example config files, so download those as well. Once the downloads are complete, extract the contents of both zip files. After that, you will end up with a couple of folders. Enter the example configurations folder, then config, examples, and search for Creality and then Ender 3 v2. Here you can find the config files and also the files for the display if you plan on editing the look of your display. Select all the files inside this folder and copy them into the firmware's Marlin folder. You will be prompted with the question to replace or ignore the files with the same name, so you need to choose Replace All. On the first generation Ender 3, the board is an 8-bit one, so we could use Arduino IDE to compile the firmware and upload it to the board. On the V2, the board is a 32-bit, and Arduino IDE will no longer work.